Welcome to Once Upon a Line, a showcase for short stories. Nan's Wardrobe by Jeanette Hardiman. Gladys sat on the edge of her bed, staring hard at the reflection in the striking full-length mirror of her treasured wardrobe. A small, shrivelled little woman with grey hair and well-embedded wrinkles looked back at her. The mirror of truth held no prisoners. She looked today the way she had dreaded looking all her life, old. Yet she knew that buried somewhere in that frail little body was the young, attractive and vivacious girl she'd once been. Where had all those years gone? How had she come to feel so completely alone in this world? Strange that one day you're part of a family, a community, you belong somewhere, you have friends, you have connections. You can easily get out and about. Then, out of the blue, everyone you've ever known or ever spent time with has, well, quite simply, they've died, and you're walking the earth alone and friendless. The house was almost empty now, except for the bed on which she sat, the precious wardrobe, and a few other sticks of furniture. There was an eerie echo about the place. It felt cold, chilled to the bone. But mercifully, she still had time to say goodbye to her oldest and greatest friend, and she was more than happy to spend these final minutes in her house with her most adored item. She recalled how irritated she used to feel when her mother had talked endlessly about which of her old friends was the latest to die, how old they were and how long she'd known them. But Gladys realised that she had eventually come to act in exactly the same way, turning to the obituaries first, searching for a familiar name, someone she'd known years ago, someone of her own age, and sadly feeling a slight excitement when she recognised a name. Gladys had a niece and a nephew, but she knew they didn't really care too much about her. They called in from time to time, clocked up a few caring hours, still trying to do their duty under duress, probably in anticipation of their legacy. But the hard truth was that they were far too busy to spare her any quality time. She was bottom of a pile of far more pressing priorities. Jobs, kids, friends, activities, the list went on and on. This amazing wardrobe was one of her first memories. Years ago, when she was 6 or 7, it had taken pride of place in Nan's front bedroom. Standing elegantly tall against the back wall, looking as regal then as it still looked today, and measuring over 7 feet in height, seemingly towering over everything. Carved in gorgeous light ash, styled very much in the arts and crafts fashion. It was a big, solid beast, comprising a fabulous set of 8 exquisitely carved, polished wooden drawers on the left, a massive hanging area on the right, where, as a child, she would often hide, a lid that pulled everything together, a base on which everything stood, and finally the pièce de résistance, a fabulous full-length mirror that also served as the door. Unbelievable to realise that she had spent more time with the wardrobe than with anyone else in her life. Their relationship had lasted longer than many marriages, more than 80 years. They had truly become a pair. Apparently, when Nan had first seen the wardrobe, it was already second-hand. Well, Nan could never have bought anything brand new. She just wouldn't have had the money to spare. She probably would have bid for it at the local auction and bagged it at a knockdown price. She couldn't possibly have imagined all that time ago that it would still be here today, still useful, still cherished. Gladys remembered when she was a child, opening the wardrobe and smelling that smell. It was a smell that incredibly still lingered all these years later. Or maybe that was simply wishful thinking. It evoked visions of Nan's hats, nestling in the drawers with tissue paper stuffed in the crowns, waiting patiently for the next big family occasion when Nan would choose one of them to top off her outfit. Those were the days when everyone wore a hat, every day, no matter what the occasion. Nan loved her hats, and of course Gladys would spend hours trying them on, parading in front of the mirror. The smell also summoned up thoughts of Nan's posh dresses, coats and suits that had hung on the single rail. This was where all the special outfits, or costumes as Nan used to call them, were stored, year in, year out, awaiting the next family gathering, a wedding, a christening, or maybe a funeral. And of course Nan's shoes had been lined up at the bottom of the wardrobe, shoes that she'd owned for years, but which, like everything else, she had taken great care of and kept for best, bought to last a lifetime. Back then the terms throwaway and disposable were unknown and far, far in the future. Many of the shoes would have had a slightly higher heel than usual, perfect for those more elegant occasions. When Nan was sadly forced to downsize and move to a smaller house, Gladys had been devastated to discover that, in her temporary absence, her cousin had selfishly claimed the beloved wardrobe and had whisked it away without a backward glance, simply because she wanted it, not because she particularly liked it. She kept it for a few years, but at some point realised the error of her ways and offered it back to Gladys. In no time at all, the wardrobe was reunited with its rightful owner and life returned to normal. They would never again be parted. Her nephew and niece had tried desperately to move Gladys to a new home, a better place, apparently, somewhere to make friends. As if she needed to make new friends. What was the point in that? They had warned her that she was now a danger to herself, prone to falling over at the drop of a hat. Yes, she knew she'd stumbled a few times, but had been sure she could manage somehow. Deep down, she knew that this had all been about making life easier for everyone else, not for her, so she had resisted, deciding instead to stay in her own home for the rest of her days. Today, sitting here, she knew that her remaining time with this wardrobe was limited. She would never see it again, and nobody else wanted or appreciated it. It had no sentimental value for her niece or her nephew, and she couldn't blame them. That's the way life goes. Nobody would ever love this wardrobe the way she had loved it all her life. They'd promised to take good care of it, to find it the perfect home. But somehow, deep inside, Gladys knew that it would probably meet a sad and cruel end. She closed her eyes and summoned up the glorious, happy and irreplaceable memories of a time long in the past. She knew that parting with this wardrobe would also mean her departure from this world. Her silence was interrupted by the unwelcome sound of the door. They were here. Her nephew's voice cut through the emptiness, yelling orders to his two companions. Take the bed and the wardrobe to the charity shop. Oh, that'll practically be the whole house cleared and ready to be sold. But that wardrobe might be worth something, you know. It looks pretty old and it's quality. Nah, can't be bothered finding out, my nephew responded. Haven't got the time. Just offload it with all the other stuff. But didn't you say that your Auntie Gladys thought it was pretty special? Didn't you promise to take care of it? Well, she's dead and gone, so she won't be bothered now what happens to it. Her nephew's words cut through Gladys like a knife. She was already well aware that nobody else could possibly understand the depth of love she felt for the wardrobe, least of all her selfish nephew. But to her, it was so much more than a piece of old furniture. It had been a major part of her life. As she heard the footsteps approaching the bedroom, she knew it was time to join her beloved Nan on the other side. After the funeral, she had hung on, resisting the final crossover to the next world. But her nephew's broken promise and the destruction of her wardrobe signalled the absolute end for her. It was time to say a last goodbye to this life. Gladys watched as her reflection in the grand mirror gradually faded before her eyes. She would be gone before they entered the bedroom. Thank you for listening. To submit a story, either send us an audio file, ensuring you include your name and your story's title at the beginning of your recording, or send us a written version and we'll record it on your behalf. All submissions should be sent to press, that's PRESS, at shaftesburyartscentre.org.uk. This has been a Shaftesbury Arts Centre audio production.